Citizens, good morning. I know that many of you like it when I do a video out here, so here we are. I've got up early, um, and it's not an unpleasant morning, so yeah, I hope you appreciate it. It's been quite a week or two, what with the events in America. Um, I was speaking to a very lefty friend of mine last night, and the one who has Trump derangement syndrome off the scale. And I was round at his house for another reason, and I was desperately trying to stay off the subject. And we managed, for the most part, for most of the evening, to stay off the subject. But, it strayed in, as it always will. Um, and, and he just dropped this little comment in. Um, he said something like, well, Trump's been doing his usual stuff, hasn't he? And I didn't rise to it. I just thought, okay, where's this going now? And I didn't show, and he showed me a picture of on his computer screen of Donald Trump, and it was a sort of side picture, and Trump was sort of leaning over to one side, and it wasn't a very flattering picture with his weird hair and stuff, and he was going, just look at him, what a wanker, and I was sort of, I don't know what you want me to say to this, um, and then I thought, well, I'm not going to say anything until he comes up with anything specific or concrete, and um, so I just sort of grunted, and he went, um, and he said, "Oh yeah, he's appointed this guy to be Attorney General," and I dimly remember it was it's Matt Gaetz, is it? And he showed me another picture um, of Matt Gaetz with his eyebrows up like this, and looking quite demonic. And so he showed me two people of his two pictures of his political enemies, two different people with very, very unflattering photographs. And I just clocked the website, it was MSNBC. And I just thought this is half of the issue here, is that um, they demonize our side and we demonize theirs, obviously. Um, but then what he said next was the thing that sort of surprised me because I'd never heard this before. I heard that Matt Gaetz is going to be a no nonsense attorney general. He's going to do good things, and he's going to stop the weaponization of the justice system. And I mean, this is what we sort of hope will happen, and we need to be hopeful that that's what they'll do, and they just won't weaponize it in the other direction. Um, it depends on your point of view. If you think um, taking down people who've used the law to um, undermine democratically elected politicians is um, just, or it's just retribution. Um, and he was saying, yeah, it's just all about revenge now. And he said, look at this guy, and this is the thing that surprised me because I hadn't heard this before on my side of the argument. He said, yeah, this guy, he's been investigated for child trafficking. And I thought, that's interesting. because I'd never heard that before. Never. I mean, I haven't heard an awful lot of stuff about Matt Gaetz. I mean, quite a lot of these American politicians, apart from the weird ones, quite a lot of them all look kind of the same. You know, they're kind of well turned out, sharp suits, and quite a lot of them look like Wall Street bankers, and certainly he does. Um, but the fact is that on our side of the argument, I'd never heard that he had anything to do with child trafficking, and I didn't delve into it, and I plan to, but I'm wondering if it might have something to do with, um, the kids in cages at the border or something like that. But the very phrase um, child trafficking brings up all sorts of you know grim pictures about things. Um, uh, quite the most horrible things. So I'm not really quite sure what he was talking about, but it just struck me that that was something that I hadn't heard at all on our side, and the only things I had heard, limited though they are, were the good things. That he's no nonsense, and he's gonna take no shit, and he's gonna you know he's gonna take down these people that need taking down. He's going to attack the deep state, and then I hear something like that, and of course it brought home to me once again the difference in our discourse. That the other side are getting completely different information to what we're getting, and this has been a problem for a while. And this is a problem because it means that you can't agree on what to argue over. So him saying that, it's not malice on his part, it's just what he believes. Him saying that Matt Gaetz is being investigated for child trafficking is it's presented as a phrase in a way that cannot be argued against. What do you mean you're in favour of child trafficking? You know, and this is what we've got to get past. We've got to get past um, this way of sort of demonising the other side. I mean, quite a lot of the other side needs demonising, um, and there will be people um, who need demonising on our side, I suppose. But and when I say our side, I mean that the ascendancy of the Trump administration in America, because our side in the UK is losing badly. It is losing extremely badly, and people have started saying that Britain is likely to be, what with the rest of Europe turning white, plus the Americans, perhaps Canada soon, um, uh, that Britain's going to be left as this isolated communist outpost like North Korea. And this is it's going to be grim to watch what's happening to our own country while America appears to be just sort of seeing the light and taking their country back, should we say. And this is something we're just going to have to endure. I mean, it seems as if Starmer and his motley crew are racing to destroy this country. The attack on pensioners and the attack on farmers, the jailing of protesters for Facebook posts. I mean, internationally, we're a laughing stock. You know, they jail people for Facebook memes in the UK, they always say. and they're not wrong. You know. Now, having said that, this was something we always were going to have to go through. Once the Tories got kicked out, there was only, it was a shoo-in that Labour were going to take over, and one of the only things that Defeffel Johnson has said that I agree with in recent years is, the Labour Party's mandate is a mile wide with an inch thick. There's no depth to it at all. They were voted by 20% of the electorate. But such is our representative democracy, is that that's just what happens sometimes. For any Americans watching, this is, I suppose, it's somewhat similar to the electoral college thing, in that somebody can win the electoral college, but lose the popular vote. Thankfully, Trump won both, so there's no argument there. But we're in a pretty grim situation here. But there's hope from across the Atlantic, so that's, it makes me hopeful. And talking of hope, the biggest takeaway from this, from Trump's victory, is something that is not quite so obvious in a way, and it's not really about who won and who lost. I was speaking to another friend of mine the other day who is on the left side, and not stupidly left, and he doesn't have Trump derangement syndrome. And he was telling me the other day that he said, as he put it, quite sanguine about Trump's victory. And I tried not to gloat too much, obviously. But there's been when I talk to people about stuff, and I haven't spoken to an awful lot of people about it, but I tend to try and seek out what they think before I tell them what I think. But when people hear that you're on Twitter and you do YouTube videos, there's a sort of dismissiveness about that. And he, and last time we spoke, he even said, "Oh, still on Twitter, Steve." And the impression I get from that is, oh, you're still with the conspiracy theories, so you're still going down that rabbit hole, you're still becoming obsessed by all this sort of stuff. And there's just sort of a general implication that the things that I believe are fringe. They're out there on the margins. They're out there with the tin foil hat wearers and the conspiracy theorists, but it turns out that my opinions are not fringe after all, and neither are ours. Yours and mine. It turns out our opinions are mainstream. Which is a kind of vindication, wouldn't you say? So even though we've got a lot of shit to go through, we can take heart in that. Stay free.